Welcome back to another podcast episode. We have all of the things going at the moment. So if you guys didn't know, I am over on YouTube. I'm going to be starting to post all of the podcast episodes up on YouTube along with hopefully getting some more long form content up on YouTube. But right now we are just putting up some short form content and also these podcast episodes. So I hope that you guys are having a great day. I want to talk about something that has been on my heart that I have been talking to a lot of people about, and that a lot of people tend to get tripped up on. And that's the fact that they feel like they're not seeing any progress. And there's really two kinds of ways that we can approach this. And most of the time when people come to me and they tell me that they are not seeing any progress, they're specifically talking about the scale. They are saying, I've been doing all of the things, I have been consistent, but the scale is not moving down. Why is the scale not moving down? I feel like I'm putting in all of the work, but the scale is not moving down. And so there are two different directions that we can go with this. Today I'm going to go in one direction, but I am going to touch on the other direction. So the first piece to this that I'm not really going to go into depth on, and I do believe that I have another podcast episode that talks about this, is whether or not you are being honest with yourself, whether or not you are actually doing the things that you say you're doing, that you're actually being consistent with your calorie deficit, that you're actually getting in your movement every single day, that you're actually doing all of these things, or are you lying to yourself? And that's a conversation that you have to have with yourself. And that's where you have to take a step back and see what it is that you are actually doing. Now, on the flip side of that, one of the things that I find to be true more often than not when it comes to clients that feel frustrated that the scale's not moving down and say that they're not seeing any progress is they are not giving themselves enough credit for the things that they are actually doing. So we are putting too much pressure on moving that scale down. We are doing all of the things, we're making major changes in our life, but we're only celebrating progress when we see that scale drop. And the truth is if you've been consistent for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, you have made some major progress. You're just not seeing it because you're only solely focused on moving that scale down. And we want to be able to take a step back, just like we would in the first scenario, and take a look at what it is that we're actually doing. And so there's a couple ways that I have my clients do that. And I kind of wanted to walk you through that today so that you can do this yourself. And in fact, my next level shred challenge is starting today, the prep week. The kickoff call starts today. We start the challenge next week, but this is one of the things that we're doing inside of there. And that's tracking data. Now, whether that be tracking your food, tracking your food is definitely part of that. But what I'm really talking about is tracking the things that you have done while you're doing them. Have you consistently got your workouts in? Have you consistently been tracking your food? Are you consistently getting your steps in? Are you getting up earlier than you have before? Are you feeling more energized than you have before? There are so many different ways that we can track progress. And normally when I have a client that comes to me where she's feeling frustrated and we take a step back, there are so many other things to be celebrated. The fact that you have been consistent with your workouts. When we first started, maybe you weren't consistent with your workouts. Maybe you weren't tracking your food. Maybe you were making poor choices. But when we put so much pressure on only seeing that scale go down, then that's when we start to feel frustrated. That's when we start to feel like we're doing things wrong, when in reality, we have made major changes and we have made major shifts, and we're building up the momentum to start to see like that momentum wave go. I just literally had this conversation with a client today where we were talking about how sometimes what it feels like is nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden it all starts to happen. And you start to see that scale move down week after week after week. And in fact, I was talking about this in my broadcast channel with my own journey. So you guys know last week I did an episode and I kind of brought you up to speed with on my prep update and how that's going and everything. And to be honest, the first couple months of prep, I was simply just building momentum. And then all of a sudden the scale started dropping week after week after week. But it took a good 2.5 months for me to build up that momentum, for me to build up that consistency, to see that scale start to drop down. Now, if I would have been frustrated, if I would have gave up, if I would have stopped checking the boxes, I wouldn't have seen those results. It would be really easy for me to come on here and be like, yeah, I dropped 5 pounds in 4 weeks, when that wasn't the truth. I dropped 5 pounds in the past 3 months, not 4 weeks. And I think that this is where we really do get tripped up. And I've talked about this before, is the fact that we really need to stop talking about averages when it comes to scale weight. There are so many different factors that happen that create your scale weight that we can't really say on average you should lose 1 to 2 pounds a week. You know, that number is thrown out there like crazy, and every time I hear somebody say it, I literally want to scream. Because if I were to ask you, let's just say you had 50 pounds to lose. If you had 50 pounds to lose and it took you 2 years to lose that 50 pounds, but you were never going to gain that weight back again, would you keep going? Would you keep putting in the work? That means some months you might not even see that scale move down. Some months you might see it move down more than others. And it's funny that I bring up the number 50 pounds in 2 years, because that's literally how long it took for me to lose 50 pounds. It took me 2 years. That's 25 pounds a year. And that's not very much. And that doesn't align with 1 to 2 pounds a week. But I never gained that weight back. I can tell you this much. Nobody has ever regretted losing weight slowly. And almost every single person that I have ever talked to who has lost weight quickly has regretted that. So you need to be working on celebrating yourself in different ways. You need to have different ways of tracking your progress. Even if it's just like a calendar where you're writing down, okay, I got my workout in today. I hit my nutrition. I drank my water. I went for my walk, and you put that out on a calendar. At the end of 4 weeks, you would be celebrating yourself because of all of the action that you took. And you would be able to release the pressure off of that scale because you know that you're making changes. You're making changes towards being a healthier person. You're making changes towards having more energy. You're making changes that are going to allow you to live a long life where you actually feel good in your body. We put so much pressure on that scale. And while I don't think there's anything wrong with having a goal weight or something to work towards, we definitely have to kind of set that and release it. No matter how long it takes, are you willing to take the action? Because if you're not, then we really need to take a step back and see what we're doing. Because if you're only taking this action to see that scale weight go down, number one, it's never going to be sustainable because you're not actually making like shifts in your life, right? We have to shift our identity from a person who is overweight to a person who has lost the weight and kept it off. And in fact, one thing that happens with a lot of people who have a lot of weight to lose is their plateaus take longer, right? So you're gonna, people release weight in all different ways. This is why I just wish we would get rid of saying that a person should lose 1 to 2 pounds a week. Let's just get rid of it. Let's stop saying that. What if the average was 25 pounds a year? You should lose 25 pounds a year. What if that was the norm, right? What if it was? I think we would have more people that were healthier because they would keep going. Because they knew that if the work that they were putting in was going to pay off, they're not going to quit in 4 weeks, in 8 weeks, in 12 weeks. And most of the time it does take people about 12 weeks to start to gain that momentum, to gain the consistency, to start to really dial things in order for the weight to start dropping. And another thing that I see is when this happens is people will start to change up their plan. They'll start to change up their diet. They'll make these drastic changes, and then they still don't see results and they're still frustrated. So then they just go back to doing what they're doing before. Is that what you want to do when you feel frustrated about the scale not moving down? Do you just want to go back to the life you were living before? Because when you came to me, you were feeling miserable. You said enough is enough. I can't keep doing this. If that's the case, then you are well on your way to making the changes that you wanted to make. So different ways that you can track your progress. You can write the things that you've been doing down on the calendar. Every single day at the end of the day, you can sit down and you can write out in the notes section of your phone. You can take your journal out. You can write out 3 things that you are proud of yourself for achieving. Other ways that you can track progress are pictures, the way your clothes fit, how your energy is, how your mental health is, measurements. Those are all different ways for you to be able to see the progress that you're making. Let's stop putting so much focus on simply just moving the scale down. Because I can guarantee if you are trying to get that scale to move down, you have made so much more progress than you're actually allowing yourself to see. So where do you need to give yourself some credit when it comes to your health, your fitness, and your nutrition? Because I can guarantee there are many things that you are doing that you are not celebrating, that you're not giving yourself credit for. And part of the process of becoming a person who has lost weight and kept it off for a long period of time is building that relationship up with yourself. And building that relationship up with yourself means that you get to celebrate yourself, even when that scale doesn't move down. If you step on that scale and you immediately start to beat yourself up, you are losing trust with yourself. So another thing that you can do when it's like weigh-in day, or if you're weighing every single day and you're kind of just like, I don't know if this is going to wreck my day or whatever it may be, is I want you to write 3 things down before you step on the scale. What are you proud of accomplishing? Write those 3 things down, sit with it, feel it, celebrate yourself, and then step on the scale. I don't think that we should avoid the scale. I think that we cannot heal the things that we avoid. I think that we need to meet it head on, and we really need to work on learning to detach our worth and our progress to that number. It's a part of the big picture, but it's not the entire picture. And I actually have an episode talking about this and how you can work on healing your relationship to the scale, but that's one way that you can start to do it. You can, like I said, just simply celebrate yourself before you get on the scale, write those things down, then step on the scale. Another way that I will have my clients, if they are weighing like weekly and they're feeling like they're not seeing any progress, we'll start weighing more often. So we'll go to 3 times a week, or we'll go to daily. I prefer people to weigh in daily because this really, even though at first it can feel frustrating, it can bring up a lot of emotions, you kind of have to meet those emotions head on, and you can start to detach that number and your worth from that, so that you can start to see the actual how the scale is going to move up and down. So you can look at the data points. So you can see like, oh, okay, well, yesterday I didn't go to the bathroom and the scale is up. Or yesterday I was really dehydrated and I couldn't get in my water and the scale is down. Like, there are so many different reasons for that scale to move up and down, and it's not because you're not doing the work. Or maybe it is, but for the most part, for the people that I'm talking to, you are putting in effort, you are doing the things. Another thing about tracking all of this is for you to be able to see what you're doing and what you're not doing. So you can celebrate the progress that you've made, and you can also look at it as feedback. I always say there's no failure, there's only feedback. And the only way to receive that feedback is to have the data. So if you're not tracking what you're doing, or you're not tracking your food, and you're not seeing the actual things that you're doing, you don't know what needs to change, right? When people come to me and they tell me that they're only eating 1,200 calories, and I'm like, how do you know that? They're just like, oh, well, I just kind of know. Most people are underestimating the amount of calories that they're eating, and they're usually eating 1,000 more calories than they think that they're eating in their head. So unless they're weighing at their food, unless they're logging it into an app, we don't know how many calories you're eating. So if you're saying you're eating 1,200 calories a day, you could very well be eating 2,500, 3,000 calories a day, and that's why you're not losing weight. So the data is important, and it's only feedback. It's not meant to make you feel a certain way. It's simply for you to be able to say, okay, this is what's working, this is what's not working. But again, you need to be celebrating yourself every single step of the day, or of the way, every single day, because that is what is going to build up that self-trust. That's what's going to build up that momentum, and that's what's going to build up the confidence within yourself to keep going, even when you don't see that scale dropping down. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will talk to you in the next one.